What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to What's on My Deck. This is our second installment. It's actually our first smallmouth installment, but the second total installment for the month of August. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I've been doing this now for a little while. Full detail of what's on my deck. What am I fishing with for that month? And like I said, this one is the smallmouth edition. One of my favorites. It's the last day of August. Tomorrow, September. It's starting to feel a little bit like fall, but these fish are definitely still in kind of a summer pattern. You know, I can catch them real shallow in some of the dirtier water. I can catch them out deep and everything in between. And they seem to be scattered out, not necessarily in big schools like they're going to be here in the next month or two. Those fish really start to migrate and get into some a lot bigger schools, and you can get into numbers. Now it seems like a lot of one fish, two fish, and really kind of junk fishing, bouncing around the lake, you know, again, anywhere from shallow to deep, and kind of sticking around. It's whatever the forage is that they are keyed in on in the areas that I'm fishing is definitely what I'm getting them on. So first and foremost, if you follow me on Instagram and you follow my stories, you know I'm not shy about it. My very first setup is going to be an 1/8 ounce Outkast tackle perfect net head. I designed this head. It's we think it's pretty perfect. It's awesome. It has all the characteristics we need. When it falls, that cross stands straight up. This is an 1/8 ounce model. I'm throwing this thing around anything. You know, it's 1/8 ounce, so it's perfect. I can attack really super shallow stuff. I can also get it out around deeper water and just kind of drift around if the wind's real big. I'm throwing a Sukoshi bug. That's one of my favorites. It's just a little craw imitator. Orange is always a good color, especially around here on Mille Lacs. The Sukoshi bug's good. It's a little bulkier, falls a little slower. It definitely gets a little bit bigger bite for me, and it's pretty steady kind of all year round. I can catch them on the Sukoshi bug. My Ned rig rod right here is a Loomis NRX 872S. If you followed along at all, you know this is one of my favorite spinning rods made. I'm using a Shimano Exsence 4000. And again, I use up 4,000 on all my reels. I like to pick up line quick. When I'm guiding, sometimes I'll have 2,500 and 3,000s around because not everybody's used to the 4,000. But for me, there's way too many benefits. I love it. I think it balances everything out good. And again, I got a bigger drag. I catch up to the fish quicker. The 4,000 is just kind of the deal. I'm using 10-pound Power Pro SSV2, and this is their high vis line. You know, I can see it real good. I'm running a really long leader because of that FG knot. And on this, I got 10-pound Seaguar Invizx Fluorocarbon. For my fluorocarbon needs, you're going to hear it on everything Seaguar Invizx. It's what I use, what I trust, from 6 pounds all the way up to 25 pounds. So that's my very first setup, the old Ned rig. Surprise, surprise, I do have a Ned rig out there, and my second one's going to be almost the same setup. This one's a little bit, I'm rocking our biggest head. This is the 3/16. Rumor is there's a 1/4 ounce coming very soon. I may or may not have been able to play with that. Very excited for that to come up. As of right now, the 3/16 is the heaviest we got, and it works pretty well. You know, out there in 20 feet, and drop on fish that I see on my graph. I can attack big rocks. I can fish big schools and big flats. It comes through everything and it gets down pretty quick. On that, I'm just using a Z-Man TRD. I think that's new money color. Again, it's got a little bit of orange, a little bit of green, great for the crawdads. My setup's the exact same. That's 7.3 medium action NRX jigworm rod. That's the 872 NRX. Again, 7.3 medium. It's a very strong medium. Love this rod. I throw tubes on this thing. I throw drop shots for largemouth, everything. 10-pound Power Pro SSV2 is my braided line, and again, I'm running a long leader with 10-pound Seaguar Invizx. So 2 Ned rigs. I use them quite often out here, everywhere really. The smallies love them, the largemouth love them, the spots love them. It's just a good bait to throw. This time of year, August is a little bit weird when it comes to fishing for smallmouth. It's really not my favorite time of year because, like I said, they're not in big groups, and they are the water tends to stain a little bit on these glacial lakes. All year long, it's super clear. You can see down real far, and then all of a sudden, August, we get these algae blooms, and the fish are there. Again, they're not in big packs. There's a lot of forage out there, a lot of baby perch, a lot of crawdads, a lot of smaller fish, stuff for them to eat, insect hatches. It just seems to be a tougher year. You know, you get a bite or two, you just have to move on and keep moving on them. So one thing I've been doing is fishing a heck of a lot more reaction baits. And this is something that I kind of picked up fishing some of the other bigger, more well-known smallmouth lakes around the country. And I brought it here, brought it home. This right here is a Mega Bass Deep X 200 LBO. What I love about this thing is that LBO system. You know, it's a smaller bait, but I can cast it a long, super long way. You can see those hooks are sticky sharp. I can cast it a super long way. That's always the key. anytime I'm around these smallies this time of year, I have to stay away from them. They're boat shy, whether I'm shallow, whether I'm deep, no matter what, they learn to avoid my boat, and I have to stay away from them. That LBO system is something I've been messing around with megabass a lot, and I really like. Again, it allows me to throw smallmouth style compact crankbaits a super long distance. And the nice thing about this is why I like the megabass in this particular model. It's got a tight kick to it. Allows me to reel it fast. These smallies, I'm not trying to finesse them. I'm not necessarily trying to get down there in all the rocks and pick each rock apart like I would a jig with a crankbait or something like that. I'm just trying to move it through there real fast, trying to get it to go right past where they're sitting, hit the rock that they're on, and trigger that bite. And again, I don't want a lot of resistance. I'm using 15-pound straight Seaguar Invizx fluorocarbon line. That's a little bit more than I generally use when I'm cranking, but again, we got a ton of zebra mussels, and I'm just trying to make super long casts. And to help me do that, I have the Shimano Exsence right here. This is a 7-speed. You know, it's got the click drag in it. I love that when it comes to actually hooking up with these fish on a real long cast, but I can let it rip with that. Do you need this? No. I would recommend maybe a Corrado DC, something that you can actually open up and make a super long cast with these crankbaits and reel them back to the water column real quick. I'm using a G Loomis IMX Pro. This is the 7-foot, the 847 CBR rod, so it's a little bit heavy. It's actually what I use for a lot of my square bills and stuff like that. Again, I had this on at the last couple of venues I was on. I took it here and I started picking up some fish on it. Definitely something I'm going to keep playing with here as a crankbait for these northern smallmouth. On to the next one, we got a Dropshot. I'm using, again, a Dropshot right here. You got to have it. I got a little owner Mosquito hook. This is a Berkley Flatworm. I mean, you can't beat them, join them, right? They're catching a lot of fish on it, and it's definitely a fish catcher. I got a 3/8 ounce Tungsten cylinder weight. When it comes to smallies, I really don't use much lighter than a 3/8, maybe super early in the season, but generally that's it. I'm talking 3/8, half if I want to get on them real quick. But for the most part, if you load it up on 3/8 and half ounce Tungsten cylinder weights, you're going to be just fine when it comes to smallie fishing. For the setup, I'm using an 822 DSR. That's like a 610, I think, 610 medium Dropshot rod, G Loomis NRX rod. This thing is awesome. It's a great open water Dropshot rod. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this for Dropshot in places like Lake Minnetonka or Sam Rayburn or some shell beds in Florida. It's not that kind of a rod, but it's definitely for open water smallmouths and a really good vertical presentation brush pile rod. Again, that's the 822. It's a 610 medium, and as with everything else, I'm running that Shimano Exsence 4000. So Dropshot, you got to have it. I'm both casting this and I'm dropping on them, fishing weed line edges out here. It's got a little bit of rock on it. The Dropshot's so versatile, and if you had to pick one bait for a smallmouth, that would probably be it. Next up, I got the Spinbait. This is a dual Realis Spinbait 90. I've been playing with this now for a couple years. I got my butt kicked on it there for a little while. It's an awesome bait. It's got a ton of power to it. It's got a lot of draw power. It's like a swim bait. You'll either catch tiny little perch on this thing, or you're going to catch magnum smallmouth. The Spinbait, I throw it in all different water depths. I'm throwing it up shallow. I'm throwing it up deep. I'm using the 80 if I'm shallow. I'm using the 90 if I'm deep. The presentation on this, for what I'm using, I'm throwing a G Loomis 901. That's a 7.6 light action rod. This thing is made for spinbait, and it's made for the hair jig, the little marabou jig. This is probably the finest hair jig and spinbait rod that is made. Absolutely love it. I don't have a replacement for this rod in any size. So this is one out of all of them. What I'd say is you can definitely find equal rods in different price ranges, and you can here too. But when it comes to this, I don't think there's anything better than the NRX. Again, I'm using that 4000 Exsence, and a little bit different this time. I'm using regular Power Pro Braid, and that's 8-pound. The reason I'm using that is I'll cast a little bit further the regular Power Pro, the 8-strand. I'm also running a shorter leader. This is 8-pound Seaguar Invizx, but I'm using a little bit shorter leader. Still using an FG knot, but at the same time, I want a little bit little leader. I want to be able to cast a long ways away, so I don't want nothing in my spool. And that's why I'm using the green line, because in this case, I am casting far out there, and I'm reeling through a school, expecting them to be kind of not in the best of mood, or I'd be using a different bait, and they'll bite this thing. But the key thing is the Spinbait gets bit. It's whether or not you can land them fish. And with this presentation right here, this 901, this setup, you can do just that. It's awesome. Next up, Topwater. I mean, it's August, it's the dog days, and Topwater is going to wreck them from now all the way through until that water gets cold and they just don't want to come up no more. I'm throwing right here, this is a SB110, SB125 by Evergreen. It's a great, awesome bait. I've used this now for a few years. I like it this time of year. It's aggressive. I can make super long casts with it. I can spool this Chronarch if I wanted to. Super long cast, stay away from it. It's powerful. It's got a ton of draw power, and it's sticky sharp, man. They hit it aggressively, and I seem to land those fish. I'm using a little Shimano Zodius right here. This is a 610 medium. I've tried a whole bunch of rods for Topwater. This is one of my favorites. I got a couple different ones. I like the Poison Adrena, but man, I really like the Zodius rod. It's a Topwater killer. And I'm using a Shimano Chronarch, and this is a MGL spool. This is the XG 8-speed. Pickup line real quick. You know, I'm using the rod to impart that action. They flush it, and I just want to hit him and be able to catch up to it and get full control over the fish quick. The reason why I use this Chronarch, again, it's got that MGL spool. I can make mega long casts. And that's just it. If they start busting and schooling, I don't care how far away they are. I want to feel like if I can see them, I got a chance to get to them. And that's why I use that one. Again, an 8-speed pickup line quick on those super long casts. But at the same time, it's got the spool to be able to let it rip. And again, it's a big, heavy bait, so it's going to fly. I'm using 30-pound Power Pro. Again, regular Power Pro. 8-strand Power Pro Braid. It casts a super long ways. I do have a little tiny, not even a foot leader here of 20-pound Seaguar Invizx Fluorocarbon. I think that is just better for the bait, gives it a little bit better action, but most importantly, when they swat it, I don't get the braid wrapped around all my treble hooks. So that little piece of fluorocarbon tends to keep it away from there, so that I got a better chance of them getting it or be able to walk it again to try to initiate that strike. So again, the Shimano Zodius, the Chronarch, awesome setup. Getting down there, the Swimbait. This is the Outkast Tackle Goldeneye. Again, another jig head I helped design. This thing's made to swim straight through the water column or come through the rocks. And this time of year, I'm doing a little bit of both. If I'm shallower, I tend to be swimming it through the water column. And if I'm deeper, I tend to be down towards the bottom. I'm using a 4-inch Biospawn. That's a fighter shad color, a Biospawn swim bait. My rod setup is a Shimano X Pride, and this is the 7.2 Medium Light Plus. It's kind of a different rod, right? A Medium Light Plus, but it was made to be a jig rod and works really nice for this. 7.2 Medium Light, a lot of backbone, a fast tip. It allows me to kind of snake it through, get the bite, and just load up and not lose those fish. Again, I'm using a Shimano Chronarch, the MGL. Castability. I can cast these baits a super long. Anything that I want to cast that's light, or I really want to cast a long way, that I don't have to deal with a ton of vegetation and cover, I'm going to be throwing that Chronarch reel, and I'm throwing it on straight 12-pound Seaguar Invizx Fluorocarbon. This is a 6-speed reel. I do want to, keep it slow. I tend to get excited like a swim jig and tend to get on it a little bit more than I want to, and that definitely costs me bites. So instead, I slow down to this reel, and definitely helps me. The 6-speed helps me put fish in the boat. But this one will shine now for me now all the way through until the ice covers up the lake. We're getting down to it here. We got the Carolina rig. I'll just keep it put together. You get the drift. I'm using a Loomis NRX 873 Carolina rig rod. Now, the CRR does stand for Carolina rig. The 873 or the 7.3, which is a medium heavy action rod, is a great Carolina rig rod. But it'd be better known as a structure rod, because this is the best football jig rod, biffle head, worming rod, anything that you're out fishing, cover, offshore, straight fluorocarbon, this is the rod. It's got a ton of backbone. It never folds up on you when you hit them on a long cast. 15, 17, 20-pound test takes it all. In this case, I'm using 20-pound, 20 to actually 20. We got a ton of zebra mussels out there. I got a 3/4 ounce Woo tungsten weight. Carolina rig weight there, and I got straight 20 running all the way down here to a little 4/0 owner round bend worm hook, just a regular round bend worm hook, and I'm using an Exopod by Biospawn. This is the Biospawn Exopod. Again, that orange and green, just a great color for this time of year. But the Carolina rig, it's always on my deck when I'm smallmouth fishing, because when you got big waves and you're around grass and stuff like that, the Carolina rig just gets you bit, and it gets you bit by big ones. You gotta have it. Last but not least, my baby this time of year, the old football jig. Again, using the same exact rod. I got that 873 NRX Carolina rig rod. I'm running straight 17 Seaguar Invizx Fluorocarbon. Both of these reels, I don't know if I mentioned, I got a Shimano Corrado. I'm using a 7-speed, just a Shimano Corrado K. Big spools. mega long casts, pick them up. These things, you can beat them up. They're awesome reels. Again, straight 17 and 7 speed. Here I have the brand new, this is the Outkast tackle. This is a brand new structure football jig they got coming out. I don't know how much I can talk about it. I was cleared to kind of throw it in there and let you guys see it, so that's kind of a big deal. But this is the jig we've been waiting for a long time. We've been playing with this over there, and I'm excited for this thing to hit the market. I'm using a little Ketchco. I think this is a saw craw, I think they call that, a 10,000 fish saw craw. I love the orange. I just kind of saw them sitting there for the first time and ordered them up from Carl's Baits, and they came in and they got just a ton of action on it. Again, I'm using a lot of oranges and greens, but this is a 3/4 ounce football jig, and this is, again, one of those baits that I'm catching fish on it now because I'm not expecting to get lots of bites. So I'm throwing it because I want to get bigger bites, and that's what I'm getting. I'm getting less bites, but I know it's going to be tough. But at the same time, I'm getting those bigger bites. But later in the year, as we progress, those things are definitely going to start jumping on that football jig, and I'm going to be putting a lot more in the boat. So that's a wrap on August smallmouth version of what's on my deck. That's the real deal. Again, I'm going to start putting stuff in my links. We're just getting this going on YouTube. I'm going to try to put it in. If you have any recommendations, comments, anything, please bring them to me. I'll try to stay up on top of them, and follow me on all my handles at Josh Douglas Fishing. Any questions you got on the gear I'm using, I'll be happy. You know, we're all tackle geeks at heart, man. So please, by all means, send them my way. See you guys on the water. See you in September.